Hello, everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. I am Chris Eaton, and with me is my co-host.
It's Jessica. Hello.
For those who are just kind of coming across this, if you're coming across it like on your podcast feed, this is a podcast dedicated to all things giant monsters and their ilk. I think in the advent of Pacific Rim, we are now entering a new golden age, and this lovely lady next to me approached me. So what this episode is going to be about is just kind of the origins and what our intent is for the upcoming shows for your listening experience. So Jessica, why don't you start us out? How did this come about?
Well, I've always been a really big fan of anything kaiju and also anything giant monster related in film industries like Attack of the Giant Crab Monsters and all that. And with Pacific Rim coming out, I noticed that there was an insurge of trend of people finally really being excited for it. Being the last time most Americans knew about it was the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
The Sony film.
Yes, that was a special moment in my life. However, I saw more and more people being really excited for Pacific Rim. Men and women, and even some of my female friends, they just like Charlie Hunnam. So people,
he is sexy.
He is. So very people were very excited, and I noticed like forum boards and a lot of things were blowing up. And I've always felt like before I would have always loved to do a kaiju podcast, but I didn't know how well it would be received because it's such a specific niche.
Yeah.
However, now I think it's the perfect time where we're kind of in the beginning flux of it, and I think it would be a great time. However, I knew I couldn't do a podcast by myself. It's just a person talking.
Yeah, you kind of feel weird just sitting there talking
to herself for an hour. And then I decided, so I started going through all the people I felt would be really great to be a co-host. And I felt like, for a lot of people, I think they would have loved to do it, but they either lived too far or they didn't fit a certain demographic, or they were really busy, like they were family men or family women. So I knew that their times were much more limited. But I was like, no, I met this great guy named Chris. And I figured, and then from there, we kind of bonded because I think the very first time is I was at Kamikaze Expo. Is it the first or second year?
It was the second year because that's when they had the main floor.
They had the main floor.
They were downstairs in the dungeon.
Yeah, so it was the second year of Stanley's Kamikaze. I moderated a panel called For Robots to Monsters, why is Japan king and the history of it. And I noticed you because you asked really good and interesting questions, and you sat front row to my left.
I was front row. I was the prick in the front row going, well, no, you got it wrong. It was the first Godzilla movie came out in 54, not 56. I was that prick. And then I noticed, it's like, okay, stop talking. You are not on the panel. You are just some douchebag sitting in the front interrupting everybody.
No, actually, but you asked politely. Like you actually raised your hand. Like people in the past I've noticed would just scream, like they would just yell it no matter what seat they were at.
And you hear in the background.
Yes.
So you got something like that. I at least I still go by my school rules. So like if even when I'm sitting on the ground, I sit Indian style, very nice and promptly, and I raise my hand.
Yes, and then from there, because I was also part of online journalism. I can't really say journalist. I feel like that's a jab to all you New York Times actual editors and writers out there.
They're not even journalists themselves. They're all hackneyed.
But yeah, no, and I started to see you around all the green rooms as we were doing interviews.
I was working my way in there. It's like getting in there real seedy like.
And and then I saw that, and then we started talking because I was like, I know you, I recognize you, and you were like, they always have this rumor or stereotype that all people trying to get into the media industry are really mean to each other and they don't help each other out. But you and the people were really nice and was like, no, you can move your camera a little bit to the left. That's fine. Or like, how about like you take this talent first and then I take this talent and then we switch off. And so you and the people that you were with were very gracious to do that. And so I was like, this is like friend in making.
That would be my humble editor and best friend, George Cadero, who we run the Realmcast together. Yeah, that was, we like our first experience with each other was at that Kamikaze panel. But then it's like when we start doing the Warner Brothers stuff, especially for the anime movies, because we are like diehard fans and slight whores for that stuff. We're just like, yes, let's go talk to Matt Bomer and talk about Superman. Let's do that. And there would be this very petite, lovely little lady over there, but she would talk a mile a minute about everything comic book related. And then I'm just like, I want to test her knowledge one day. So I was like prodding her. It's like, what else are you into? And she's like, monsters. I'm like, go on. And I started doing the chin scratch thing, and I'm like, what else? She's like, I like mixed martial arts. I'm like, I feel she might be trolling me, but I have to keep prodding. And then she hit me with one that just kind of was like, do you like monster trucks? I'm like, no, you hit me the one white thing I'm not into. So.
Oh, and I think we were talking about like taxidermy.
Yes, it was like real weird things. It was just like
weird.
It was a good 9 out of 10 kind of thing.
That was really weird.
So yeah, so it was up until I think so we hit like 9 or 10 different press panels, and we're always kind of like talking a little more.
Yes.
And then I think it came down to this last Comic-Con, right?
Yeah, San Diego Comic-Con.
We were doing the press line for
Psych.
No,
was
you
it
were
Psych?
we were doing Flashpoint.
We were doing Flashpoint. Okay.
Which was an experience in itself.
Oh yeah, it was.
But that was also an awesome screening too.
It was very good.
But anyway, yeah, she I see her, I was like, "Oh, hey, Jessica." She's like, "Hey, I got something to ask you." But I came in rather late to the interviews because I was running from across town because I was ironically hitting the Godzilla experience. I had gotten one of those passes. I had gotten in initially, and then I managed to score my way and get one of those passes I can keep going through.
Yeah.
So I hit it a second time because I wanted another poster too. So I hit it, and then George calls me, and he's like, we have work to do. So I'm hauling ass down like 5 city blocks, and I get up there, and I'm finally, I'm huffing and puffing. He's like, I've already talked to Daily Sun. Get in there. So up next comes everyone. So we say our pleasantries, and you're like, I got something I want to ask you. And then we get lost in the shuffle. So next thing I know, we're done.
And they shove you out. They clear that room out so fast.
Yeah, this is like, just get out. And mind you, we're in the Hilton too, so that's across the way from the actual convention center. So we got to run over to was it Ballroom 20 where they did?
Yeah.
Luckily, we got in. Did you get in?
I did. I went in for a little bit, and I had to leave because I had to do something for Marvel. So I was.
See, you didn't get to see.
Which went back to the Hilton. We got advance copies. Usually, Gary Mariano is the gracious man that does all of Warner premieres.
He's a very lovely man.
And he usually helps us out because he understands that not all media can be able to do everything. So sometimes he'll have advance copies out for us. So thank you, Gary. But yeah, like I ended up with an advance copy, and it was this whole thing. So I only saw part of it, but then I had to leave. You weren't there to
see the routing applause of Thomas Wayne firing guns at alternate world Harley Quinn.
I was not there for that, but it was a joy to see on my friend's flat screen TV.
So, well, anyway, so now I got this hot because I'm looking for you afterwards, and I got this neck.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what the hell did she want? And George is like, did you ever find out what she wanted? I'm like, no. So it became, this is Friday night, so there's 2 more days of the show. I'm like, I have not seen her at all. I'm like, she's probably busy doing real stuff, and we're enjoying the show. So
I get lost in the crowds.
Yeah.
I've learned not to wear heels only during interviews.
Jessica's a very petite girl too. So, and when you're in a sea of humanity that is Comic-Con, it's very easy to get lost. So, luckily, I had her contact information. It's like, I'm like, hey, what were you want to ask me about? I'm just like, hey, what's up? Or it was like, no. I have an idea. Do you want to do something? I'm like, what? And then she hit me with the podcast. So, ergo, smash cut. 3 months later now?
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, we had a couple setbacks. Like, I got sick. I apologize if you guys are going to still hear me coughing. And then there was all kinds of things going on. And finally, we are all good. We're ready to go, which just in time for Stanley's Kamikaze.
Yes. You want to tell people what's going on there? Can you tell them yet?
I don't think so. I think we can tell them after it confirms, or they can go and we can announce it online, which, everyone will know.
There's something coming up. If you're in the LA area, definitely come to Kamikaze the first weekend of November. So it is a excellent show to check out. It's a nice alternative to the madness of San Diego. And they probably make the best use out of the LA Convention Center, sans maybe Anime Expo.
Yeah, an E3.
Yeah. Which I didn't get to go to, but someone else on the side got to go to. Yeah, he's staring at me. So, here we go. So now we are in this renaissance of Kaiju. So, thanks to the wonderful work of Guillermo del Toro, and now Legendary finally sallying forth with their version of Godzilla. We're in like a nice flux period where I think we're going to hit like a crescendo that I think a lot of people thought was going to happen when Cloverfield came out.
Right.
Where everyone's just like, oh, giant monsters are back. J.J. Abrams is doing a giant monster movie. It's going to be great. And it just turned into like one of those blips on the radar, and that was it.
I got a headache halfway through that movie.
Yeah,
because of the shaking of the camera.
When we sit down and properly go into that movie, you're going to hear a lot of rhetoric on my end, because I did not. And you can ask George one day. He'll tell you, it's like, this guy hyped it out of that movie. Like, for 6 months from that Transformers trailer all the way on, it was just like he would not shut up about this. They're making a giant monster movie, and it's going to be great. And then J.J. Abrams is doing, and oh my God, it's going to be. And then I sat there and watched him, just like,
not enough monster for me.
It was like, why did they kill Santa Claus? Like this, I just literally watched someone stab Santa in the throat in front of me. It's just like, this is not a giant monster movie at all. It's like, I get what they're going for, but it wasn't it. So this is what I was getting from everyone else when the Pacific Rim hype, because I was doing the same thing for Pacific Rim, but I'm like, no, you don't get it. There's robots this time, and it's Guillermo del Toro. He never makes a bad movie. And they're just like, you're going to walk out disappointed. It's safe to say, I was not disappointed. Well, what about you? What did you think of the movie?
I was definitely not disappointed. I was definitely not. I mean, of course, for every movie, no matter how perfect it is, there's always small things that can be changed, or dialogue, or this person, that person. But overall, it was I really liked it a lot. And I think it was really good. I think the casting that he chose was pretty good for a lot of different reasons. And I loved it because you got to actually see the Jaegers, and you really actually got to see the kaiju. Kind of wish more in the daytime, because I sat a little bit close the first time, so all I saw was like arms and legs and muddled mess and teeth, and then some sort of luminescent thing that's coming out of there. And I was like, what is happening? But then second, third, fourth, fifth viewing was really, really good, and you learned to know where to pick your seats. Yeah,
I took my dad twice to see it, and he was just like, son, whoa. Like, they got to do a Godzilla movie like that. I'm like, they are doing a Godzilla movie like that. It's like, okay, well, we got to go see it when it comes out. I'm like, I will take you to go see it. Yeah. So, believe me, the hype that I felt for Pacific Rim is just going to be twice folded once the Godzilla promotion machine starts getting going. Because when I was 14, when the Sony film was coming out, I was just like, it was something. It was just like, yes, let me grasp onto it. And then I saw it, I was just like, oh, yeah, no, yeah. It was a horrible reality of like, oh wow, they can really flip something. Like,
yes, a classic.
Mind you, 2 years later, I hadn't really seen a bad movie until I saw Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and that was when I realized, oh wow, there can be bad movies. And I didn't want to tell myself for the first. I saw Godzilla, the Sony one, twice in theaters, and that was it. The first time, I was just like, okay, no, this is fine. Okay, I didn't want to admit to myself, no, there was a really shitty Godzilla movie, and it wasn't even really Godzilla to begin with. So I saw it a second time with my dad, and he watched it. He's like, yeah, I thought it was all right. I don't know why Ferris Bueller was in it, but, you know.
I remember that movie. I either went for my birthday or I went with just a group of friends, because I was much younger then, but all of my friends, and I had to make all of them come. Yeah. Because, strength in numbers. Your parents don't want you taken when you're in middle school. None of my female friends showed up. But it was like all my guy friends. I think because they're not really Godzilla fans, they didn't really see a problem with it.
It's just another big budget movie.
I mean, they had other problems with it, obviously, but my main issue was obviously like the mythology of it and everything. So I was more shocked, and I'm usually someone who can accept change pretty well. I may not like it, but I can accept change. And that was not really change I was willing to accept.
No, it wasn't. It was as the fandom put it, was Godzilla in name only. It became Gino. So, and then finally, at least what made it bearable was years later when Toho was like, no, we own the character, so we can use it for other stuff, and it became part of the overall canon, if you will. So you can accept it on a side note, and the fact that it's not Godzilla, it's a completely separate creature, but it's part of the Toho legacy. It's like, all right, so the sting does not hurt as bad. And plus, they got a decent cartoon out of it, too. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I saw the cartoons, actually. I liked the cartoons. I was wondering what was going through the heads of the Toho executives.
I remember reading a story. the guy that created Godzilla, Tomioka Tanaka, I believe. I believe me, you're going to hear me mangle many names because I do it for both English, French, Spanish, and Japanese. I mangled the shit out of names. So if people are listening, like, that's not his right name, it's like, bear with me, please. But he was actually on his deathbed when that movie went into production, and he got to see the design, the Patrick Chotopoulos design, and they brought it to him, and Toho was just like, I guess whatever gets made, and they showed him, and he was kind of in and out of it, and he initially was like, well, describe it to me. It's like, he's very thin.
Yes, I'm used to mine's looking like an iguanodon.
Yeah.
Because I love dinosaurs, I love all things paleontology, but I was kind of like, what happened?
Yeah. If it was any other monster, the design actually would be a pretty decent design. But the fact that when you're sticking it with that name, you got a whole thing to set up, a whole just legacy to live up to. And at the point, there was it's not how filmmaking is today, where like comic book movies have come this way too. Where when they first start coming out, like the X-Men movies, they were just like, okay, we're taking the names, we're kind of taking the characters that you kind of know, but we're trying to make them adapt to what we think we can feed audiences, what they're willing to accept. When honestly, a lot of people were willing to accept a lot of like the more out there stuff of like comic book characters. So we're at the point now where it's like, yeah, I can buy a guy turns into a giant green monster, and there's another dude who's got a serum in his thing, and he dresses like an American flag that's been asleep for 50 years, and they both team up. It's like, yes, because had they done that in the late 90s, early 2000s, they would have mangled the shit out of it, because it's a thing where they think like I think is what it was Jurassic Park. So everyone's like, okay, Godzilla's a dinosaur, we make him act like a dinosaur.
He looked like something from Jurassic Park. Yes. So my friends were confused. Like, a lot of people knew what Godzilla was or is, but they were like, we're pretty sure there's like a radiation thing going on. And they were like, but he looks like a dinosaur?
Yeah, he looks like a T-Rex from Jurassic Park. That's mostly because that's what worked. So now we're 15 years out from that. That was 15
Are
years
you
ago.
serious?
Yeah,
now I suddenly feel so old.
Yeah, I was doing the math in my head because it came out. It came out like 2 weeks after like my favorite movie of all time, Fear and Loathing, came out. I was doing the math. I'm like, that came out. My God, Godzilla came out 15, and then Armageddon's also 15. So that whole summer of '98, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff out that year. I'm getting old too.
Yeah,
I'm starting to feel it too. So, but with everything, time heals, people, grow, and now we're
hoping it gets done right.
Like 8 months. Yeah. Well, so let's go into that a little bit. So as we're recording this, we're gonna kind of start segmenting things once the show gets going. But I feel that we should probably talk about this right now in our first episode.
Right.
The San Diego Comic-Con trailer got leaked.
Yeah, it's all over the internet and everything, and there was all kinds of... The good thing about BuzzFeed and other sites is, bless their souls, because they did this with Guardians of the Galaxy. They would GIF everything for like every 6 seconds, so you can kind of see the trailer, but in quick motions, little snippets. I personally loved it. I'm one of those people that buy into the hype of certain things. I think the year before, they had just a foot.
Yeah.
And
well, actually, no. I think the
was it the year before they had something. It was super fast
because when they showed I've told on another podcast my displeasure with getting shysted out of the Warner Brothers panel at Comic-Con 2 years ago. No, last year. So because they announced, Pacific Rim's coming. We're going to do a big panel, and then The Hobbit's going to be there too. So I was like, I got to get up early. So I got there like at 5 in the morning. I waited. I was 100 people away from getting into that panel. I did not get in.
Are you serious?
8.5 hours in line. I waited and nothing. So it's just like, I was like, damn it. So I was miffed when I finally gave up. I'm like, well, Pacific Rim's a year away. I'll eventually see something. So I'm checking Twitter as I'm, writing a story up because there's like, Iron Man armor's out. I'll post something on that. And I'm checking my Twitter as I'm writing, and all of a sudden I see on my feed pop up, Warner Brothers just ended the Pacific Rim thing. Now they got something else. And I was reading, it's like, okay, lights are going down. And then it was just like blank. I'm just like, okay, so they're playing the Godzilla trailer again. I flip my shit. Like literally, it was a movie. I was the guy in the middle of the convention center just screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm like, what son of a...
I screamed so loud that all the people I sat with leaned the other way because my lovely friends that are with me were there for other things. I think they just deal with me with the thing. But I freaked out, and my friend was like, you know that was not that. I was like, shut your face.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
For the 2 seconds that was there.
So then everyone was describing it. I'm just like, oh, God damn it. Really? That's because Comic-Con, Godzilla, the two things I love the most. And it's like, that would have been my most perfect moment. Instead, I'm just seething with anger. So as everyone's going on, it's like, oh, yeah, they showed it again, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm grumbling off. So I go over to the Legendary booth, and they're passing out tickets, and Gareth Edwards is going to show up. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get something out of this. I know I will. So I grab the ticket, and then I'm first in line. So I make sure I'm first, and I walk up, and Gareth's in there's very nice, very polite, and one of the 4 writers, I forget which one it was at the time, but he's sitting there too. And I go up, I'm just like, Mr. Edwards, like, I love Monsters. I was a big fan of his movie Monsters. I was like, it was great. When I learned that, it was you doing Godzilla, I did like a backflip, and he's like, really? He's like, I'm like, yeah, look, the tone of Monsters is what I've been waiting for a Godzilla movie for years. And he's just like, and the writer leans over, is like, oh, no, we're doing more. I'm like, what do you mean more? He's like, no, believe me, we're doing it right. And did you see the trailer? I'm like, no, I didn't see the trailer. He's like, all right, but believe me, we're not going to screw it up. I'm like, you're not going to Sony screw it? It's like, no, we're not going to Sony screw it up. So, and Garrett just turned to me, he's like, he was like doing this kind of thing, like he was like, because I'm a big guy, kind of imposing. He's a tiny guy sitting at a table. And I just turned to him. He's just like, I'm going to give you a badass Godzilla movie. And then he put it this way. He's like, it's going to be a Dark Knight Godzilla movie. I'm like, okay, that's what I want. He's like, there's not going to be any. And I'm like, just answer me this one question. Is he going to look like Godzilla? He's like, of course. Why else we're doing the goddamn thing if he doesn't look like him? I'm like, all right, so now I feel comfortable. So, and he was very polite, and the writer was a little more kind of like no, we're gonna blow your mind kind of thing. So Gareth was just very, I'm gonna make a really awesome movie. Just have faith. So, and then with that trailer coming out, I know it's a proof of concept trailer, and especially seeing if did you get to go to the Godzilla experience at Comic-Con?
I was not able to. I had to work a lot, but
did you get to the Warner Brothers panel?
I did not. I was also working.
Damn.
I was also working. It sucked.
Yeah, because because everyone when that trailer came up, everyone's like, "Oh wow, is that what it's going to look like?" And people were pointing out, it's like, no, that's the San Diego trailer. Like, if you saw anything from Comic-Con, that's not exactly how Godzilla's going to look. But the beauty was, he looked like Godzilla, and just the imagery was just gorgeous. And everyone was like, oh, wow, this is not Pacific Rim. This is going to be something even better. So,
yeah, no, I think the 2 years ago, when my friends had leaned the opposite directions of my Black Canary Scream, when I was so excited their main concern was like, so next year we're getting Pacific Rim and Godzilla? They were like, that's kind of like a monster overload, like an oversaturation, because it is a market, I think it takes some people time to use to. It's not a superhero market.
No.
So they were like, it might take a while, but luckily the movies are not coming out in the same year.
Yeah. Someone had brought that up. They're like, Warner Brothers is doing 2 giant monster films. It's like, well, yes and no. Legendary's doing 2 giant monster films, and actually they had a third one going that Robert Zemeckis was supposed to do that I think fell apart. It was a giant sea monster movie. But no, they're like, from what I read, Thomas Tull, like, he was like adamant to get Godzilla, like back in 2010 when they finally got it. He's just like, I started this company to make comic book movies, and I wanted to make a Godzilla movie. It's like, now we're finally doing it. I'm like, yes, thank you, because Watchmen was awesome. So, and I'm a firm believer in Legendary. They got a really good track record. So when they announced it, and I was just like, these guys are everything's going to be, life is glorious once again.
Do you feel that little boy inside of you?
I do.
Like the one to pop out?
The one that was horribly squashed and then rubbed over with bleach from not only the last American one, but from Cloverfield. He was rising up like a zombie. It was just like, no, there's hope. No! Like the rubble came back down. Now it's like he's just been injected with steroids and it's just punching his way through. So Pacific Rim got me up to that point, and now that the marketing for the Sony for the new one's starting to come out, I'm getting to that. I'm getting the shakes, like I'm an addict again. Because
Pacific Rim was my little girl dream come true to me. I know most people probably think about other wonderful things. However,
like
for
ponies and princesses.
or weddings, which nothing wrong. I actually love weddings. But I was kind of like, no, I've always wanted giant robots fighting giant monsters. If it happened, I was thinking most likely Japan would be first. But I would love to see an American film done. I mean, the director's not American, but an American film done, because I wanted it originally in English.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if had Japan done it first, I would have to wait for the subtitles or dubbing. So when Pacific Rim came out, I was so excited. And I remember when, the thing is, the marketing was very soft and very slow.
And that's what a lot of people blame. It's kind of
yes. Yes, I was the type of person where I was currently in kind of a townhouse apartment situation where I have many amazing roommates. And I woke up to know that Apple's trailer was going to post it on like a certain AM time. It was terrible. I don't know if they ever filmed it, and I hope it never becomes like a Vine video. But it's me wearing like Hamtaro pajamas, and I'm screaming, and I'm so excited, but I haven't hit play yet. And then I hit play, and then I watch it, and then I'm freaking out. I'm screaming so loud. I've woken up everyone in the house. But they have like vinyl, wooden, aluminum floors that I slipped and then I fell immediately promptly after. But I was so freaking excited. And my friends was like, I don't know if you know how old you are, but some of us gotta work. And I was like, hey, I did too, but I was just so excited because I was counting down, because they usually announce it early.
Yeah,
they'll be like, expect Iron Man 3 trailer to come out next Tuesday or whatever. So I had this waiting for a while. So I was very, very excited to see it. We've seen other ones and stuff, but I was very, 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 very excited to see it. I was a little bit too excited because one of the roommates has I'm going on forever with the story, sensitive hearing. His ears rang. His ears rang, and he was very not happy afterwards. But I was super, super, super excited.
Well, I got a more embarrassing story on my end.
May that Vine video never come out.
When the Pacific Rim, because the build-up to it, in my old job, I had access to a computer. So on my breaks, I'd be like pulling up stuff like, the week before the trailer was released, that's when they started releasing the marketing stuff. So it's like, okay, here's the blueprints for all the Jaegers, and here's all this. And it's like, okay, Thursday afternoon at like 4:30, that was like when the trailer was going to go up. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, I got like an hour till I get out of work. I got to find something. It's like the clock was ticking down. So I'm like, hey, boss, I'm going to go use the bathroom real quick. I'm like, okay. So I go and I take my smartphone and I go into a stall. I sit down. And mind you, I just closed the lid. So I'm sitting on like a chair. And I just got my phone out. I'm just refreshing YouTube until it finally pops up. And then pops up. And I'm just sitting there like, and it's on a 5-inch screen, but it's right in my eyes like it's Cyclops' visor. And I'm just like sucking it all in. And my buddy who works there walks into the bathroom while I'm watching this finishes. I'm just like, oh, sweet God, yes. And he's just like, what are you doing in there, dude? He's like, you're enjoying yourself a little too much. I'm just like, oh, I'll be out in a minute. He's just like, you're watching that trailer, aren't you? I'm like, how'd you know? He's like, because I never hear you go, sweet God, yes, when you're in the bathroom. So he's like, yeah. It's like, can I see it? So he's like, yeah. So I'm like, here, I pop the door open as he comes in so that way the bosses don't see. And he's just like, look, it's like, holy shit, that's awesome. So as we're walking out, we both come out of the stall, and another one of our coworkers comes in, and he just stands there looking, he's like, the hell's going on? And she's like, nothing. Like, two guys just can't use a toilet together?
No, it's really exciting. I remember when the WonderCon one came out, it's the first time I saw the Jaeger walk down dragging the U-boat like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
I stood up and I started cheering, and a guy behind me was like, sit down! And I felt so bad. But luckily, Del Toro is someone who knows how the fans work, and he is a fan himself, so he showed the trailer again a second time.
Yeah.
And I knew not to stand up the second time. But I was super excited, and that's when I decided that when the movie came out at midnight, me and my friends were going to go. I actually dressed up as like a kaiju, but I was wearing, there was basically dinosaur PJs from Japan. They were onesies. They were like called like karagumis or something, but they're really cute. So I wasn't really a kaiju. And I made my friend, Mr. Sensitive Ears, dress up as a Jaeger. And he was just like, oh, fine, I guess. And then my other friends, and it was really funny. I had another friend come and he wanted to be a pilot or something, a co-pilot. And so he was like, but you need two of it. And it was this whole coordination thing. But I was really, really excited. Fortunately, the only one who wanted to dress like that. Everyone else was just, I think they just go along to like amuse me.
I did an IMAX showing. I dragged everyone along with me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, George, my buddy, was just like, I'm going to be there with the camera to film your disappointment, because that was the joke. They're like, it's going to be Cloverfield all over again for you. I'm just like, nope. So,
but then Idris Elba can do no wrong.
Oh my god, I love Idris Elba is just a juggernaut of a man too. So we're sitting there, and pretty much I'm just like, it's like heroin for me. I'm just like, more. And so my buddy and George are like kind of looking. They're like, I can hear them like whispering to each other. I'm just like, I don't give a shit. There's monsters, robots pummeling monsters right now. And so the movie ends, and we stay for the post-credit stuff and everything. And then we get up, and my buddy turns to me. He's like, you look like a 4-year-old who had just walked into a Toys R Us for the first time. It's like, I don't think I've ever seen you smile like that before. I'm like, you have not lived until you've seen like something like this. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life. So, and not only that, but it's a matter of fact that there's been a drought of this kind of stuff for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Ever since Final Wars, Godzilla Final Wars came out in Japan, they haven't really done anything. There's been, you can live off Ultraman, but it's kind of not the same thing. It's like, I'm used to drinking Coke, but now all I have is Coke Zero. So it satisfies the need for something sweet, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
So, and then, what was it? Dai, or whatever, I think they're called something else now, but then they tried to revive Gamera after Godzilla left, and then that didn't really pan out too well. And then you have nothing but parody movies that's been coming out. So, like, the genre kind of, like, dropped off in Japan, so it's like, the well, there's nothing coming out of the well, you're pumping, and there ain't no oil coming out of that thing anymore. So it's like, you're going to wherever you can.
Right.
And so, again, coming back to Cloverfield, it's like, oh, this is going to reignite everything. And it's like, we got a comic book. That's cool. Like, IDW was like,
IDW did really great job.
We're going to make a Godzilla comic book. I'm like,
they did great.
At least thank you, something.
Yeah, so, it's like Doctor Who fans who went through a period of drought.
They went through 20-something years before that. Or no, they went through 15 years, I think.
They went through, many years. And the thing is, like, we had to live through fan fiction or IDW.
And that one really crappy Fox movie that was counted as canon. A lot of people, they're like, we don't like to talk about that, but we have to because it's counted as canon.
Yeah, and then we did that, and so I kind of felt like my childhood is being relived, and I was very excited because I kind of felt like, this is what I've always wanted, and it's finally come true. When I was younger, I was thinking it'll never happen in my lifetime, but it happened in our lifetime.
It's like many people, it's like, I'll never live long enough to see a black man become president. And then they do, like, I never thought I'd live to see it.
Yes.
So now it's like, now we're finally, God bless Hollywood for, ironically, the dry well that Hollywood has hit, ironically, has been bringing out stuff that people have been like, why don't you do this? So like, no, we're too busy doing other stuff. It's like, well, now we've kind of done everything else, so let's go do giant monsters again. And, say what's one thing for Pacific Rim, you could say a lot of things of the fact that, Warner Brothers kind of didn't market, and a lot of it might have had to do with the fact that they knew Legendary was bolting from them. So they're like, fuck this noise. We didn't really, put too much money in. Godzilla, on the other hand, though, they put a lot of money into. Mm-hmm. They got half the budget, so they're like, well, okay, we got to push this. And not only that, but Godzilla is a known property, and that's what gets pushed nowadays in the movie industry. It's, okay, this was based on something, so let's run with it. It's like, Godzilla, the giant monsters, stomping on everything. We're going to do that, but it's going to be with big budget effects, and it's not going to be with Matthew Broderick.
Right.
And the fact that they actually got like a fairly, I would like to call it like an A-grade cast, too. I mean, say what you will about Kick-Ass being in it, Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's up and coming. Believe me, if he's going to be Quicksilver, like his stock is going to rise real quick. They have the Olsen sister that can act, and then they got Bryan Cranston. So that's alone, we're like, Bryan Cranston's in a Godzilla? I gotta see this. So I'm hoping that's what a lot of it will be. And then if the teaser trailers any at least gives you an idea of what the tone will be, I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised. Like, that didn't suck at all, or that's not campy at all.
Right.
So, and that's as we go on with this show, we're going to delve into that, the different eras. We're going to delve into the campiness of some of the stuff, why there's maybe a stigma to it. We're also going to go into, like, there's a love and craftsmanship to it. So into the suitmation, into the model building, the people behind it, just the various, we're covering it all. It's like, if there's something about it, that's what we're going to be covering on this show.
Yes, Western, Eastern, anything. It can come from Singapore, India. There might be a South African movie out there if you guys know. You find out all kinds of things. My friends just discovered like a Filipino or Indonesian version of their Batman and Robin.
Oh, I heard,
And it's like internet is full of wonders. There's all kinds of hidden treasures there.
I know. I was on a kick for like Indian knockoff films for a while.
Yes, where there's Spider-Man's doing Bollywood, among other things.
Yeah,
yes.
Like him, Captain America and El Santo team up to fight an evil Spider-Man. Or they're like their terrible knockoff of Superman, where the effect that they had was a kid outrunning a slow-moving train to look like he was faster than like a train. And like his impressive feat of strength was bending a hose, which was supposed to be a pipe, but it clearly was a garden hose.
I was going to say garden hose.
So, and then for some reason in the middle of the movie they stopped so that way they can have a dance sequence in it too where he's at a disco. That kind of stuff. There's a charm to it that's maybe unintentional, but it's there. And that's what draws a lot of people. That's one of the draws of the genre in itself, that when they first started, they were straightforward, serious films, much like the movies that Harryhausen did back in the day. Like you look at them now, it's like, they're stop motion, but there's to the average person, it's like, oh, this is just a puppet moving around, because they're so spoiled by CG and like going for realism and stuff like that. But back in the day, that was top of the line. When the first Godzilla movie came out, they never told anybody how they did it. It was just like they didn't know it was a man in a suit. They just like, how in the hell did you do that? It's like trade secret.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But they were straightforward, serious films. It's the idea of use the special effect not as the center of the story, but to complement the story. And that's what those early movies were like. And then they became exploitative, and it's just like, this week Godzilla and his son are teaming up to fight a giant toad-looking creature. So, and we've cut the budget in half, and it's about a little fat kid running around in shorts.
No, I loved it. And it's I want to actually briefly cover, because it's too amazing. How did you get into the world of kaiju?
That's a good question. Okay. Well, I go first, and then you go. Okay. So I was 4 years old. It's one of my earliest memories.
Hell
I was being a red-blooded boy. I was into dinosaurs.
Yes.
I had a billion plastic dinosaurs. My dad would hit the swap meets and pick up these because they were like a dime a dozen. So not only did I have giant like plastic dinosaur, but then he was like, here's a dragon, here's some other thing, and like there's some He-Man shit thrown in there. There was all kinds of stuff. And then one day, and again, this is one of my earliest memories, and this is how I remember it. We were sitting in our back room. My dad's like, I gotta go do something. He flipped through the channel, and I believe it was on Channel 5 out here in LA, KTLA. They were playing Godzilla in 1985. My dad's like, oh, Godzilla, here, watch this. And I sat down like, that's a dinosaur, and he's huge. Oh, and he breathes fire. And then for the longest time, that was the only Godzilla movie I had saw. But it left that mark. There's like, if you CAT scan my head, there's that dark center. It's like, is that a tumor? It's like, no, that's when he first saw Godzilla. That's just where his brain erupted, and that's scar tissue now. So that was the first time, and then it evolved into, I think from like my 5th birthday, I was just like, is there more? Is there more Godzilla? My dad's like, yeah, there's a lot more. So they bought me a VHS copy of Godzilla vs. Megalon. Really, in today's standards, really poor quality, but to a 5-year-old, you don't know the difference. It's just like, okay, there's monsters going on, and I was hooked. Then a year later, the Australian Ultraman hit TV. And it's just like, there's more of this stuff. And so my dad being my dad, luckily, I wouldn't call him a nerd, but he was super he loves comic art. He loves horror films and stuff like that. So it was just like, come, son, I will teach you these things. I will show you. And he had buddies that own comic stores, so they would get fan scenes in. It's like, here, look at this. I'm like, there's a movie with all these monsters in it? That was Destroy All Monsters at the time. It was just like, and pretty much my mom would be like, what the hell did you do to him? She's like, all he wants now is Godzilla stuff. It was Godzilla and Voltron for the longest time.
Yes,
it was just big robots, big monsters, and with the occasional Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters thrown in. Yeah. That's all I ever asked for Christmas. And in 1991, there's not a lot of stuff you can find, so it was whatever they could do. I had that Imperial Godzilla that you see in the background of Roseanne, and that was pretty much it. So, but, you know, as things grew and my dad started taking me to comic conventions, I learned, oh, yeah, you can go buy this stuff because people bring it over from Japan. And now I'm a terrible, terrible addict.
No, but all this good comes out of it.
Yes.
Now
we're podcasting about it.
Yes.
So what's your origin story?
I think I was about 3. Mm-hmm. We lived in Florida at the time. And I was born and raised in America. Mm-hmm. So... However, my dad worked during the day, so my mom pretty much raised me. Mm-hmm. But I have a good relationship with both. That sounded terrible for a second there. But I would watch Sesame Streets and all kinds, because she wanted me to have the best start I can in the United States by having perfect English. Mm-hmm. But
I think you should really let people. You're of Asian descent.
Yes, I am. Really Everyone's like, "What is she?" Mm-hmm. It's a strawberry shortcake rainbow thing going on. No, I am of Asian descent. Mm-hmm. So I would watch it. You learn your English because you want to make sure that you don't have an accent. Yeah. But my mother's also very open. Like, she lets me have the remote control, which looking back she may have regretted. But I will flip through channels, and like you, I loved dinosaurs because my mother does not believe in gender roles. She's not super feminist, but she doesn't believe in gender roles. So I had like dolls and train sets, dinosaur books and princess books. So I was obsessed with dinosaurs, and I loved animals. And I looked, and Godzilla looked like a fat, chubby iguana that could walk on his back legs, but kind of like a dinosaur. And I flip the F out. Do
you remember what the first movie was that you saw?
I don't remember. I do not remember. I just remember clips of it. That's why.
Like, if you went through and watched it, would you have like that flashback
I think sequence? I can, yeah. And so I fell in love with it. And then what does every kid do? You put all your toys up to look like a mini San Francisco, Tokyo. And then you just crash through it and start yelling. And that's when my mom is like, "What are you doing? It's messy. What's going on?" And I would tell her. She knows what the character is. My parents know what the character is. They're not huge fans of the character, but they know what it is. So, better than me learning how to roll a joint at the age of 4. They just kind of let me start watching at 3.
At least she's not smoking crack.
Yeah, so they let me do it. And then ever since then I discovered, then there's Rodan and Mothra, and I loved insects, and just everything. And then from there, the love of it just kind of grew. And then I still remember, and then there was Gamera, which I was so excited because to me, I was like, "Mommy, giant turtle." And then so she's like, "I don't know, this turtle is going around doing things." And I still remember.
You make it sound so seedy too. He's going around, he's driving around, giving kids candy. It's like,
I know,
"Hey, come meet me."
Terrible.
Come meet me around the corner.
But I loved it, and I remember it was real horrible because we went to a pond and I was feeding ducks, and I saw this tiny turtle, and I took him and I threw him in the air to see if he could fly, and then he just landed in the water, and my mother was like, "No," and she was freaking out. She was like, "That's not how you treat animals, Jessica, don't do that." And then I was like, "But he flies on TV." My mom is like, "But that one's large." And then she went to this whole thing. It's and my dad is a computer engineer. He's a scientist, and so he was went through this whole thing of okay, something that large, it's not possible for him to fly that high.
He was breaking down the science for you of it.
So sad. And my mom is like, Santa can fly, and there was this whole thing, but they kind of let me, because my parents are very big on imagination, and they wanted me to be someone who grew up to be very imaginative and be able to have creativity, because that's sadly something school systems have squashed over the years. And my mother knows that. She's a teacher, so she wants to make sure that I kind of lived in the creative world for as long as I can. And ever since then, history was set. And then I remember one time my mom is like, "It's just Godzilla, you're never." And then now I was like, "Look, Mom, I can finally make a semi-career choice out of it. You thought it could never happen." But she's always been really supportive, with the exception of Godzilla. But now she's learned to just let it go.
And see, that's the thing too. When you hit me up with this, you're like, "Let's do a kaiju podcast." And one of the aspects of it was that obviously you're a girl, so I'm not trying to be mean about that, but it's like it's not a thing. Like very few women I've ever, because I've been to the 2 G-Fest they had out here, and obviously there were some women fans, but it's a dude thing. It's like a
G-Fest is awesome, dude.
It's mostly, I won the video contest 2 years in a row there when I was in like my early teens. So yeah, the shameless whoring once again. But no, it's and I'm not trying to like put it down, but it was like this would make it interesting because honestly, I've listened to other podcasts about Godzilla. And it's all dudes usually. It's like, and I think it's because there's that draw. Monsters tend to be like a guy thing. Dinosaurs tend to be a boy thing when you're growing up, and as you said, there's like these kind of gender roles that start where it's like girls go off and start doing their own thing, guys keep being boys until they hit like 19, and then they just become grown up adolescents, and that's about it.
But society's doing better at it. I know Toys R Us or some store in like London they don't gender stereotype their toys anymore. But like you were saying, like throughout the years different films came out, and that's how it fed me. But I always felt like I'm an only child, so I felt like the only person I can talk to about it was my mom. But she's always cooking, so she's like, oh, that's nice, so he's walking through town killing people, okay. But like you can tell that she's just kind of there to appease
I love my daughter
me.
But just I can't.
And then
deal
there
with
was
this anymore.
in 6th grade, I remember this one other kid in my class I found out was really into Godzilla, and we talked about it all the time, and he was really into it. And then I really got into the internet because 1996. And then one time I came at recess with those really thick binders, they're like 4-inch binders, of just print out pictures of everything. And I think this kid realized that he got in touch with the wrong friend. He was like, whoa, I like it a lot. But not that much.
See, that was the thing.
And I was just really into it.
See, that was the thing, too. With all the things that, guys, today you throw a rock and you hit fandom, and it's just like, oh, what, you're a huge Inspector Gadget fan? Yeah, there's a million of those other dudes out there. But when you're a kid, pre-internet, which to a lot of kids is like, there was a time before the internet. It's like, yes. There was a time when you had a horribly large computer, and you had a dial-up that made a god-awful noise that sounded like demons screaming in the night. But before that, you had to go out and find people. And it was very rare to find anybody that A, was like, you like Godzilla, and B, it was, I like Godzilla, but do you like it on the same level I do? And
then you're so scared because then once you latch onto that friend, if that person's not on the same passionate level, you will not have that friend much longer.
Yeah, then it becomes that awkward phase where it's just like, I think we should see other people now.
Yes.
So, with other, with certain things, like it was on TV, like Transformers was easy to get other dudes into, G.I. Joe, Ghostbusters, I had no problem making friends with Ghostbusters, or Ninja Turtles. It was just like, Godzilla was always that thing. It was just like, I'm into this. I had one buddy that was just like, I'm into it, but he was like willing to like jump on board with me, and it's just like, he's like, teach me how. I'm just like, okay, well, here, watch these movies and do this. He's like, oh man, this is awesome. But he never got to the same level where I got into collecting and stuff, but he was just like, no, these are cool. No, I'm down with you on that. It wasn't until I discovered G-Fan magazine, and it's like, oh, so it can, then the fandom opens up.
Yes.
And then I found my way into the internet, where I was also doing the same thing. Before I had my own computer, I go down to my local library and spend hours upon hours, because they're like, printing is free over here. Just please donate something. Cause it's like, is there a limit to how much we can print? No. And I had discovered websites that would publish screenplays, like produced and unproduced.
Right.
But when I say unproduced, I'm talking about like James Cameron's original Spider-Man script. I'm just like, this is up here and no one is talking about it. And so it'd be like, I'd look over and people were like, how many pages is that dude printing? And they're looking, it's like, what are you printing? I'm like, James Cameron's masterpiece, of Abyss, his original 185-page script. I'm like, I guess that's educational? Okay. And then I discovered the Godzilla forums there, and, dial-up being what it was, everything was just in those crappy GIF images, and people, to download a picture would take about 4 to 5 minutes. So it's just like, okay, I can't come back and just keep pulling this, so I got to print everything out in black and white, and I would create little binders and start coloring them in, because that's the kind of weirdo I was. And then I discovered, like, there was a lot of other attempts at that stuff, and I found like the original Sony script, all that stuff, and then it just spitballed into, I think we're going to write about this one day. And now, here we are.
And I'm excited because I think Pacific Rim has brought out a lot of people who are newly into it or have always liked it but never really came out of the woodworks. And so now I feel like I kind of have some more people to talk to.
And the beauty about Pacific Rim, it hit two genres at once. It hit the anime robot genre, then it hit the giant monster genre, and then it hit that kind of weird in between that Japan had, where with like Johnny Sacco and his flying robot, where people were like super into that. Like, oh, this is kind of the same. So that, which still surprised me, just. At least it has its fans, and the fandom is still. You can tell every day there's more and more stuff growing about it.
Right.
And I think with the release of the home video, as we're recording this week, it'll grow. It's going to be one of those movies that finds an audience, and that it's just going to keep going. And before you know it, there's going to be like the fandom's just going to explode.
Yeah.
I kind of trailed off there on that one.
No, it's fine. No, I had a friend who was checking box office every day, and he was like, how is this movie not making as much money as Grown Ups? And he was like freaking out, and he goes, no, we're not going to get Pacific Rim 2. Oh my God. He was like freaking. I was like, I'm glad I brought you into my world of crazy. And he goes, no, I just like it because robots, Idris Elba. So he's one of like 10% in, but he was still kind of felt like this is a movie that should have done even better at its box office, and of course we all blame marketing or whatever, but he was just really excited, and he's asked me like every day the last couple of days, like, when is the DVD coming out? I'm like, October 15th, the day of one of my dad's birthday. And then I was like, and Little Mermaid came out October 1st. And then he was like, okay, I thought those are my childhood things, like, so I was like, no. And so we're obviously probably gonna go find a Best Buy or something on Tuesday and like look for it, because we want to support it.
Yeah.
And Del Toro is a director who truly cares about what he does, is a fan himself, and seems to be very nice to people.
Oh no, he's been a gem every time I met him.
Yeah,
he was the first director, like professional director I ever met. I met him and Sam Raimi on the same day, but Del Toro because I went to go real quick story. I went to the LA Comic-Con before it was the shelf itself that is now. And they had A-Legged Freaks, Blade 2, and then they were going to show something for Spider-Man, which was a month later. And Sam Raimi was there, so I'm like, I got to meet Sam Raimi. So we go. I'm sitting there, and in the audience, and ironically, Dean Devlin, the producer of the Godzilla movie, was there. So he was talking about A-Legged Freaks, and then Guillermo del Toro comes out. I'm like, who is this guy? And it's like, he's the director of Blade 2. I'm like, oh. And he won everyone over. He was just this charming, large Mexican man who was telling just stories like, I'll go into later, but he was like just anecdote after anecdote. So when I walked up, I'm like, dude, man, I love Blade 2. And like, you are a funny son of a bitch. He's like, oh, thank you so much. He's really appreciated to find someone who just enjoys humor and monsters. And I'm like, I'm going to follow you forever. And years later, when I made him at Monsterpalooza, super nice guy. And I told him, it's like, dude, you were the first director I ever met, and you set the precedence for all the other directors. It's like, I hope I didn't set the bad precedent. I'm like, no. It's like, if anything, everyone's been shit up to your point. So it's like you like one of the top guys. I go on to everybody about your films, and they're like, just shut up about this guy. I'm like, not to the point of like they hate his stuff, but it's just like you talk too much. So
no, he seems so nice, and I was just so awestruck about how great he was, and he's just very friendly with fans, and he takes his time to hit up small stores and small conventions and small events, because I think he's still very well connected with the community. But I think that's one of the great things of why I hope to see him succeed more in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been really great. But yeah, I look forward to Pacific Rim 2. I felt really bad. Like during Pacific Rim 1, I was sitting there and my friends were like, what's wrong with you? I was like, do you think I'm the only person rooting for the kaiju to win? And my friends are like, probably, because the humans are there for the human component of the audience. I love robots. I'm a huge, right now I'm wearing a Transformers hoodie, but RoboCop was like my first crush. He's my first crush. He was awesome. I was like, marry me.
Opened up another door.
And I was 3. But the problem was, if I really had to pick, it came down to I wouldn't say gun to my head, because either way I think that person would shoot me. But I was like, I would still have to pick kaiju over robots. And when I was watching this, I was like, I just want them to win. But I know that was not the point. But hopefully we'll see maybe something different in Pacific Rim 2. I think, of course, the humans are still going to win.
Well, it could be like something like Dread, where Dread did horrible to box, but it just annihilated on
Dread.
DVD. Dread was a great
God.
movie.
When it hit Netflix, it was on loop.
Yeah.
in our apartment condo.
Yeah, ironically, it has a very RoboCop feel to it, too. But, no, the beauty about one, yay for China, because they ate it up like it was candy. So it did gangbusters there, and that's the reason why, you know, I was reading they're making another Narnia film, and the question was why, and the reason was China loves Narnia. They love going through that wardrobe, and they love watching Mr. Thomas. So if China loves it, it's like, no, I think we can go do another one. So
because like 1.7 billion people, even if half of them watch it,
yeah,
like,
and not only that, but it was, you know, in Japan, everyone was like, oh, it's going to do gangbusters in Japan. Unfortunately, they released it against Miyazaki's last movie, and Miyazaki movies are holidays in Japan, so it just annihilated everything over there. Like, nothing did anything during that run of his last movie. So I was looking at it, I was like, why would you release this when you knew this was coming out? It was its second week. I'm like, these are Titanic level movies in Japan. You don't release anything within a 5-month window after it for fear of it not doing well.
Right.
But China, thankfully, you know, China's still cool. You know, they gave a hope for at least a sequel. But if anything, hopefully Legendary at least does something with it. They give us comic books or at least something. There's a rich world that Travis Beacham created initially with it, and Guillermo del Toro just added his magic to that. It could be horribly exploited for years to come. Right. So, but now we have Godzilla to look forward to.
Yes, we do.
So,
but that was a great intro for our pilot.
So we promise we will actually talk about very specific things coming up. Like I said, we'll be covering the comic books when they come out. We'll be covering the movies. There's a ton of stuff.
Video games. There's trading cards.
We have a scroll.
T-shirts, merchandising.
Yeah, we got a piece of paper with scriptment on it that looks like, you know, hear ye, here comes the king, and it goes right down to the floor of stuff we're going to be covering. So we might have some guests come in, hopefully, to talk about their fandom and whatnot. And, you know, we promise it's going to be just more than us kind of blathering on about our lives. So
yes.
That's going to do it for this debut episode of the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the Kaiju Kingdom.
Yes.
On Facebook at the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. Go find us there. Friend us. We will be putting all kinds of goodies and stuff on there as well.
Yeah, be our friends, because we want to be your friends, and we'll have more people to talk to about. It'll be fun.
Jessica, where can we find your work?
I run thecomicbookgirl.com and girlongeek.com. And
you talk about comic books on that?
For the comic book girl, yes. The comicbookgirl.com I do. And then Girl on Geek is everything else that I love. And one of the subsections is kaiju and all that stuff. So I really like it.
So girlongeek.com. You can find my work at therealmcast.com. That's TheRealm cast, CIST.com, where I do a couple of other podcasts. You can hear my sultry voice there on Take Two and a couple of other things where you do. And, real quick, what's your Twitter handle?
I actually just switched over. It's Comic Book Girl, but there's like a underscore between the words. So it's comic_book_girl. And there's also at Girl on Geek.
Do we have a Tumblr page?
We do have a Tumblr page, too. You know what, people? And I thought about starting a Pinterest. We might even do that. For Tumblr, we are the Kaiju Kingdom podcast.tumblr.com.
And you can find us on Tumblr, too, at The Realm. You can find me and my work on The Realmcast on Tumblr as well. You kind of just got to search it out, don't we?
Yep.
I'm getting a thumbs up, yeah. So, and then my Twitter handle is bastard_robo. You can, if you really dare to go look at that, that's just me ranting and raving about stuff. So if you want my more professional stuff, check out at therealmcast.com. That's where you can find most of my professional work.
And if some of you guys prefer not to stalk us personally on Facebook, or just find Chris Eaton, you can always email us. We have the Kaiju Kingdom podcast at gmail.com, and you can just email us and
please write.
Say
let us know. It's like, hey, I think you're doing great, or hey, this is bullshit. You can talk more about giant monsters.
Yes. So, is Jessica a real person? Is Chris just sitting next to a robot?
Am I doing voices? Because it's like, there's no way a guy like that's hanging out with a girl. So.
No, but I'm glad we found each other and we're buddies.
So that will do it for this week's episode. Stay tuned next week. We will have all the news that the Kaiju world is producing, and we'll probably talk about a movie. maybe we'll figure it out. We haven't gotten to that far yet. So, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you.